So it's Wednesday afternoon, evening, depending on where you are, and got a number of topics to get to today. Aaron Rodgers wants a little bit of reassurance from the Green Bay Packers if he's to restructure. We'll talk about that in today's show. Daniel Snyder looking to get 100% of the Washington football team and purchase the other 40.5% of the minority stake in the ownership. And so that's something we'll talk about on today's show. But one of the bigger topics will probably be surrounding quarterback Mac Jones, or as I like to call him, the Miggdy Mac Daddy. The Miggdy Mac Daddy. The Miggdy Mac. Whoa! The Miggdy Mac. Who else could it be? Me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to the 149th installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I, of course, am your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. It's Wednesday, and traditionally on the podcast on Wednesdays, I allow you guys to take over the show. So if you're out there watching, and I'll repeat this several times throughout the show to remind you that if you have something that you want to say, you want to talk about, if it is pertinent, we will discuss it later on in the show during social media maneuvers. Just make sure you use the hashtag LouieTLive to have your comment read in the comment section of this live stream. So we'll get to that a little bit later on. We'll talk about various topics just to jumpstart social media maneuvers, and then we'll allow you guys to take over the show at that point. We'll talk about Mac Jones and his pro day a little bit later on. And much like I did with Trey Lance when his pro day took place a week ago, it's not necessarily about Trey Lance in the pro day, or I think his pro day was about 2 weeks ago now. It's not necessarily about the pro day. Again, I told you, the pro days are only a story when they don't go well. So a wise man once told me, it's only a story if the opposite happens. Slow guys run slow, fast guys run fast. Pro days are supposed to go well. They're scripted. You're at your home environment where you're comfortable, throwing the guys that you know. It's supposed to go well. It's when it doesn't that it becomes a story. For all intents and purposes, and by all accounts, his pro day went fine. He wasn't all that thrilled by his performance, but it wasn't terrible. That's not necessarily what I want to talk about. I want to talk about Mac Jones, the prospect, and the prospects of him potentially going in the first round and how you guys feel about that. I'll tell you how I feel about Mac Jones as a first round pick later on in the show. But before we get to any of that, you know how we kick the show off every single time. So let's just go ahead and do that. So without any further ado, let me drop this gem on your melon. Open your mind, let your conscience be free. You're now rolling with your man, Louie T. Let me open you up. Get you thinking a little bit. So, I want to talk about Daniel Snyder and his bid to purchase 100% of the Washington football team. 100% of the football team in Washington. Daniel Snyder currently the majority owner, owning 60%, or if we're getting technical, 59.5% of the Washington football team. He is the majority owner, along with several of his family members, his wife, and his, I believe his kids are also a part of that ownership group there. But he's the head of that. He's the guy that we recognize as the owner of the Washington football team. And he is looking, we know that there's a nasty dispute right now between he and the minority ownership group. One in particular that he does not get along with. It's a nasty court battle where you'll remember the Washington Post article that was supposed to be released and absolutely lambast Daniel Snyder. We were over here making all kinds of wild accusations about what was going to be contained in the article. You know, there were allegations levied about sexual assault and these drug rage filled parties and women and he had a prostitution ring and all kinds of stuff. I mean, this guy's name was tied to all kinds of people, and it was a mess. Needless to say, the buildup was much greater than the actual article itself. Didn't even come close. There was even, speculation of bribery with officials in this thing, and it turned out to be, and it wasn't minuscule. It's a shame that when you look back on that article, as damning as it was, I mean, people lost their jobs. Things changed drastically after that article. Alex Santos had been with the organization for a while as a player personnel staff member for about 5 to 7 years. He'd been with the organization for a while. You had Larry Michael, who was the head of communications for it felt like over 2 decades, definitely a decade plus. He decided to retire or resign. He was going to be fired, so he decided to resign behind that article. It was a damning article, okay? Lots of things, including the cheerleaders and different accusations levied against the organization for their treatment of females in the workplace. And because of all of the buildup to that article, it didn't carry the weight that I think it should have. And Daniel Snyder was allowed to skate. And there were people like myself that felt like maybe Snyder had his hand in the buildup of this thing, because if there was no buildup, had that article just been released by itself, no mention of potential bribery of officials and cheating amongst officials, which didn't ever make sense to me. I'm like, why is Washington one of the worst? It's one thing when people accuse the Patriots of cheating, they win. Okay, if Washington was paying officials, it was funny. Someone said if Washington, if any of this is true, which it wasn't, but if Washington's paying officials, they need to get their money back because they stink. That was the perfect line there. So I never believed any of that. The prostitution ring potentially, the drug-induced parties and the alcohol benders at Redskins Park. All of these things were unfounded. None of these things came to light in this article, and I don't think any of those things actually took place. But what did take place seemed to be very minor compared to the accusations that were levied before the article came out. So I thought Snyder had his hand in that to make the article, because he knew what was going to be said, because obviously when you do your due diligence as a newspaper or some kind of media outlet, you go to the source and you go to the people that the article is going to be about to see if they want to have something to say about the things being said about them. So is there a comment? Is there some type of rebuttal response to these accusations that are being levied towards you and your organization? Do you have anything in response? So you know what's coming, because they come to you and tell you, hey, this is what we're reporting. This is what we found. Do you have anything to say about this? And you can either have something to say, you can put out a statement through your lawyer, or you can say, I don't have any comments. He decided to go no comment route. That's fine. Well, we're going to run with this story here in the near future, so you know what's coming. So I thought he might have braced himself for impact by saying, you know what, let's put all this nonsense out here, and maybe it'll make this article seem a lot less damning when it comes out. And it really did happen that way, but we come to find out that maybe he didn't have anything to do with some of the salacious stuff that was apparently going to be in the article that wasn't. And so he thought it was one of his minority owners that had something to do with it. And so there's a lawsuit going on with that right now, and it's just ugly. And the NFL, it's a black eye for the league, and the league wants this thing to go away. Really, a lot of people think that the league wants Daniel Snyder to go away. I don't think that's the case. And I think what we're about to talk about is further proof that they have no intentions of getting rid of one of their own. Look, the NFL ownership group is a small, tight-knit fraternity. Not everybody gets along. At times, it's probably like a high school environment where you've got cliques inside of this 32 organization ownership group where 32 individuals or families run the NFL essentially as individual entities. And so not everybody gets along. The Dolphins owner may not get along with the Falcons owner, and it is what it is. But at the end of the day, they all go to bat for one another, okay? Because as I just mentioned, it's a tight-knit fraternity. It's only 32 of these NFL franchises and only 32 ownership groups. So you want to make sure that you don't allow anybody from the outside to penetrate what is a tight-knit group. And again, remember, these owners are all on the same team. They may be battling one another on Sundays and Mondays and Thursdays and the occasional Saturday, but when it comes to money, which is at the end of the day, the most important thing here is making money, they're all in bed with one another together, okay? If you make money, we all make money because it's a revenue sharing entity, the NFL is. So they're all looking out for one another. And as someone eloquently put it, if it can happen to him, then it can happen to me. So they're more of the thought process that we don't want one of our own getting pushed out the door because of accusations and things that have been unfounded and hearsay and rumors and he said versus she said. We don't want one of our guys being pushed out the door because if it can happen to him, then it can happen to me. The only way we see ownership change hands in this league is either willingly, I don't want to do this anymore, I want to get out while the getting is good, and we've seen that like in Cleveland, or you're forced to sell because of something so bad that you've participated in, or something that can be proven that is so damning that you have to sell because of the black eye it will put and the stain that it will put on the league itself. So the other owners will come together, force you out, or you'll take the initiative as Jerry Richardson did and understand that this isn't going to end well for me. I'm just going to tuck my tail in between my legs and go much faster than slow. And so you'll see that happen. The NBA did it with Donald Sterling when those videos or videotape recordings of him talking so negatively and being a racist against his own players came to light. He had to go. So none of that exists with Daniel Snyder. However, this thing with his minority owner that he's going to court about, and you got lawsuits filed in overseas in India with an indie-based group that Daniel Snyder alleges accusations that they were the ones that had the Twitter tweets that were really starting that rumor and really facilitating it and getting it out there that there was bribery and that there was prostitution rings and all of these things. And so the NFL just wants all of that to go away. And these owners, they don't want Daniel Snyder out. Contrary to popular belief, they don't want Daniel Snyder out. He's one of them, okay? And as I just mentioned, if it can happen to him, all of them, every last single one of these NFL owners probably has skeletons in the closet. Some to lesser and varying degrees, but I think every single one of their asses has skeletons in the closet. Some, again, greater than others, some more dead bodies and skeletons in the closet than others. But if it can happen to him, somebody can go digging in my closet that doesn't like me, doesn't think too highly of me, and drag those out, and I could be the next guy to go. So they don't want to set any precedents. So I don't think he's going anywhere in this new deal that could be in place as early as the end of this week, or excuse me, next week, could be a sign of Daniel Snyder having the vote of confidence he needs from the rest of the owners. So let's talk about this. Daniel Snyder looking to purchase 100% of the Washington football team, buying the other 40.5% from the minority ownership group. All right. So the NFL has to approve a waiver for him to get a loan for $450 million to purchase 40.5% from the minority investors. So this overall sale to get the rest of the percentage of the Washington football team stake is $875 million. So essentially what Daniel Snyder is saying is, I got about $425 million in assets, liquidity and other different things that I could put forth that will allow me to put this towards the purchase. I don't have the other $450 million, however. I don't just have $450 million lying around to purchase the rest of the team, but I want the rest of this organization. I want to be the sole owner of the Washington football team. Can you guys help me make this happen? Despite the ongoing investigation with Beth Wilkerson that I have going on that could produce some damning information that isn't good for the league and probably shouldn't have a guy like me owning the team, I need y'all to look out for me and do your homeboy a huge solid here and provide me with a waiver that will allow me to acquire $450 million worth of debt to acquire the rest of the stake in ownership of the Washington football team. And what he's going to need is for the rest of the owners to vote on this, which they will do next Tuesday or Wednesday. They'll have some owner meetings at which that time we will find out if they pass the 17-game schedule, which we know it's going to be passed. I think it's going to be unanimous, but we'll find that out next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, somewhere in there. And we'll find out if Daniel Snyder gets the clearance to get this waiver, to get the loan that he needs to then make the purchase for the rest of the stake in the Washington football team. 3/4 of the owners in the league have to vote yes, have to agree upon this. So essentially 24 out of the 32 owners have to feel like Daniel Snyder belongs as the Washington football team owner and should remain that way, so much so that he deserves this waiver, which will allow him to acquire the loan or $450 million worth of debt to his account that will allow him to become the unquestioned 100% ownership stake in the Washington football team. So I assume that's going to happen. Again, I think that more guys want to see him stay in as owner than guys want to see him out as owner. So I assume that that's going to take place. And the only thing that Snyder has to agree to make this happen. So let's just say, for shits and giggles, that Snyder proposes this. It's put out in front of the other 31 owners. They have to vote. Obviously, Snyder's going to vote yes in his favor. And let's say that 26 other owners decide that, yes, we think that you should get this waiver that will allow you to acquire $450 million worth of debt to then acquire the other 40.5% of ownership stake in the Washington football team, making you the 100% owner of the team. The only thing he has to agree to at that point is Snyder and the minority investors, because again, it's not like just Snyder getting this money is the end of it. The investors, the minority investors, are being paid. Okay, they're the ones getting the $875 million essentially. So Snyder and his minority owners have to cease the ongoing legal battle that has been really bringing this ugly details into focus and into the light and into the mainstream consciousness, which the league wants to suppress all of that stuff. Like, you don't need to know what's going down in these back channels and what the hell Daniel Snyder's doing and some of the nefarious stuff that he's been participating in, and maybe some of the nefarious things that the minority owners or owner was participating in. At the end of the day, they want that to go away. So we'll grant you this opportunity to become the full owner of the Washington football team. And in exchange, we need you to drop the lawsuit. Hey, minority owners, you're getting your bread. All right, you're getting what you need out of this. We need you to drop your grievances as well. So NFL doing their best part to make this go away. You know, it's funny. I woke up this morning to this news and somebody hit me on Twitter and was like, yo, this is code red. You know, Snyder's getting this. And then I'm looking all around Twitter and people are outraged. And I'm like, what are you guys outraged about? Somebody was like, oh my God, you got an ongoing investigation about this man and all of the things he's done to this point. You got the Washington Post articles. You got the New York Times, boat scandal from, about 5-6 years ago. All of this shit. And you're going to give this guy a $450 million loan so he can buy the rest of the franchise. And I'm like, are you surprised? Why are any of you surprised by this? The minute, and I once stepped into the light. I had on all white, and I thought we had a chance in this fight. And I thought that maybe, just maybe, I allowed my guard to go down for just 1 second. And I said, maybe, just maybe, we can get rid of the big bad monster known as Daniel Snyder. And I got excited, and we did video after video talking about this and that and how he could be gone. And we thought the Washington Post article was going to do it. And then it came out, and then we're like, oh, that's it? And even though that shouldn't have been the response, because there were a lot of vile things in that article, which is why heads rolled after it was released. But because of the buildup, and there was no way that the buildup and the hype could be lived up to. I mean, all of the things that we talked about prior to that article coming out, what we thought could actually be in it, was no way. And so that didn't do it for me, though. I told everybody as soon as the article came out, and I read it from the start to the end, from the cover to cover, I read that thing. And I went through it with a fine-tooth comb to make sure that I didn't miss anything. And I came on live right after, and I said, guys, that's not enough. I'm sorry for those of you wishing and hoping and cheerleading that this thing happens. That's not enough. And at that moment, it hit me, but I wasn't done. I said, I'm not giving up the fight. It wasn't until the league, Daniel Snyder, got in front of this thing. He hires Beth Wilkerson, all right, to do an internal investigation of the Washington football team. And then the NFL says, you know what? We're not going to do our own separate investigation, our own individual investigation. We'll allow her to handle it. You guys do your internal thing and you just report the findings to us. People were outraged, as they should have been. It was at that point the NFL said, you know what? Maybe we should take over this thing, but we don't want to make people think we're taking over. So Dan, you make it seem as if you think it's in the best interest of the organization to have the NFL take over this investigation. But we're telling you, you need to have us oversee this thing, because that'll make it seem fair in the eye of public perception. So Daniel Snyder comes out and says, hey, in the best interest of this investigation, to make sure that the integrity of this investigation is kept, we're going to allow the NFL to oversee this. That's what it should have been done at the very beginning, and it wasn't. So that told me this guy's not going anywhere. If the NFL really wanted him out, first of all, Beth Wilkerson is on the NFL payroll. She's worked with the NFL before. When you talk about the concussion lawsuit and all of the things that they had going on, when CTE became a thing and they had to defend themselves, and the movie came out, Concussion with Will Smith, when they had to defend themselves, Beth Wilkerson was the one doing it. So she's in bed with the NFL. So whatever they want, if they wanted Snyder gone, she could have dug up enough information to get him out of there. The fact that Snyder went ahead and hired her, probably at the request of the NFL, to make this thing go all smoothly. He hires her. They say, hey, you let her handle that investigation. We're not gonna barge in. We're not gonna butt in. And then they come back after public outrage a week later and say, you know what, Daniel, you tell the media what you think. And he says, yeah, the NFL should take over this thing. That's the only way this could get done and have it be fair. Well, that ship has sailed. At that moment, all the white garb gone. Dressed in all black like the Omen, because I knew what time it was. His ass isn't going anywhere. So this, what you're hearing today, not a surprise. And it shouldn't be. Should never have been. From that moment on, when Beth Wilkerson took over this investigation and the NFL said, yeah, she's got it. Y'all go ahead and handle it. and let us know what you find. Only to come back a couple weeks later and have Daniel Snyder say, hey, NFL, y'all take over. That's for the best for all parties involved. Which the NFL told him, hey, we need to take over this. That's when you should have known Daniel Snyder's not going anywhere. This investigation isn't going to turn up anything that we probably don't already know. Maybe one or two other things. Nothing major. You know, there's no smoking gun here. There's no physical evidence against Daniel Snyder. All right, there's no gun. There's no shell casings. There's no body. This is all circumstantial. He's not going anywhere. So he's going to own the team. And again, people can be upset about this. They can be distraught. They could be disappointed. All of those emotions are relevant today. But guess what? You should have known. Or as a wise woman once told me, you should have known better. You should have known better. You should have known better. I did. There's another topic to discuss here, and that's Washington name change. We'll do that on another show. I won't bring that to your doorstep today, but we'll talk about that because there was some more dialogue about the name change that if you're a Washington fan, you're a little off-put by, like, what? We thought that there was a resolution here, that we knew what was going to happen and it was going to happen in 2022. Now you're telling me that we can still be the Washington football team? It's another discussion for another day. But in any event, let's I did see a few super chats. I want to get to those real quick before we move on. J Mart, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My man J Mart writes, Lou, what's good? How do you feel about the Giants this year? They've made some good moves. I rank free agency Giants, Washington, Dallas, and Philadelphia. Thoughts? More moves? I have the exact same ranking that you do. I thought the Giants were outstanding in free agency. Look, you know, we kill Dave Gettleman all the time for being a lousy general manager. He's not good in the draft, if you ask me. But I can tell you this much. He's put the Giants over the last 3 years or so. He's put the Giants in, it feels like everything he's done over the last 3 years culminates in this season right here that's about to come up. Because if Daniel Jones stinks this year, then really he probably deserves to be fired, because it's the same thing the Bears did with Mitchell Trubisky. Now, they didn't trade up to draft Daniel Jones like the Bears did with Trubisky and give up draft capital in the future to do it. But they drafted Daniel Jones at number 6, I believe, when nobody else thought he was worthy of a top 15 pick. So that one was hard to stomach for Giants fans. And I feel like, you know, the infrastructure of the roster has really been built well. When you look at their secondary, I thought the trading of Odell Beckham Jr., shame on you if you step to the old dirty Beckham. When you look at that and you couple that with what they got back, even though Kevin Zeitler is no longer there anymore, but you look at everything that they've been able to do between getting Jabril Peppers, who I think is a stud. I've been really impressed. I wasn't the biggest Jabril Peppers fan when he was drafted out of Michigan, but he's been an animal for them. The trading for Leonard Williams, then the subsequent franchise tag, then the second franchise tag, then ultimately getting the long-term deal done, so that trade doesn't go in vain now. And he's coming off the best season of his career. This defense played really well last year at times. And so you look at this secondary now, you go last year, I thought the best free agent acquisition for me of any team in the league, anywhere other than Tom Brady. Take Tom Brady out of the equation going to Tampa Bay. The best free agent acquisition was the Giants getting cornerback from the Panthers. Oh, shit. Damn it. From Samford. I can't even remember his damn name. But you guys know who the hell I'm talking about. Let me go down in the comment section because I know one of y'all gonna type it real quick. But them getting him, then getting Jabril Peppers, and then they drafted Julian Love out of Notre Dame. They drafted Xavier McKinney. I thought that was a steal in the second round. He really didn't play last year. Then you go this year, and they went and got Logan Ryan right before the season started as well. He was a huge James Bradbury. Thank you guys out there for that. James Bradbury. I knew somebody would type it in there for me. Thank you to Christian Miller 22 and Bob Esther. And then to complete the cipher, now they go out and they get Adoree Jackson. He's revamped the secondary. I still think they need help up front, but what he's essentially done is he's taken the Giants' needs and really reduced it to just needing an edge rusher, essentially. Like, they feel good about their linebackers. Could they upgrade it a little bit? Sure. But they've got some players there. The kid from Georgia that got injured last year was playing really well before he got hurt. You know, the guy from Green Bay came over last year, Blake Martinez, and essentially took a leadership role on and was like the alpha male of that defense in the middle. And so they feel good about linebacker. They feel good about the defensive line, even though they just lost Dalvin Tomlinson, who was a huge part of their defensive line. But you got Leonard Williams, and they got some other pieces. The kid they drafted from Clemson, they think is going to have a bigger role now. Like, they've got stuff, and now they just need edge rushers. So to me, he's narrowed down the focus. They don't need receiver help anymore. They don't need tight end help anymore. They don't need corner help or safety or any of these other positions. They need offensive line, and I think they're going to do that. And they need defensive end. And to me, to come out of this free agency period saying, man, they landed this guy, that guy, you got to feel really good. And getting John Ross on a one-year deal that was really favorable. I just thought it was a really well-done free agency period by the Giants, getting Kenny Golladay, getting Adoree Jackson, getting Kyle Rudolph, getting John Ross, getting Devontae Booker as a backup to Saquon Barkley. I thought it was an excellent free agency period. And when you couple that with the long-term deal that they reached with Leonard Williams to lower his cap number, and you also couple that with the moves made in the past, getting Jabril Peppers here, getting Logan Ryan, and then signing him to a long-term deal, getting this team to a position where they feel like we're ready and we're ready now. It's all on Daniel Jones, essentially, and we'll see what they do in the draft. I think what the Giants did was tremendous. So I agree with you there. Also, when I look at Washington, I thought they were solid. I'm not blown away. I love the William Jackson signing. You know how I felt about Curtis Samuel. We'll see how that goes. But we needed a receiver, so I'm not mad at that. You know, I'm not a big fan of the Ryan Fitzpatrick move, but everyone seems to be elated by it. We'll see how that goes. But it's more than what Dallas and Philadelphia have done. But Dallas didn't need to do a lot. Again, I told you, I don't think that their roster was as bad as everybody thought, as much as it was they needed to be coached better, especially on the defensive side. So I think Dallas, just by re-signing Dak Prescott, getting him back is good for 3-4 wins by itself. And so even with all the defensive struggles last year, they still won 6 games. Okay? So getting Dak Prescott back, and I mean, you think about some of those games that they lost, you know, the 2 Washington games, they would have won at least one of those, you have to figure. Dak Prescott's never lost to Washington but once. And you've got to assume that he would have won at least one, if not both of those Washington games. And then the Sunday night game where they start JMU and he's terrible, and they're in that game, and you could argue that there was a terrible call on a fumble that the Eagles scooped up that really gave the Eagles a comfortable win. If Dak Prescott's playing that game, they beat Philadelphia that time as well. So, like, I don't really think that it's even close that Dallas has the most talent in this division. Anybody that wants to say otherwise, have at it. But they didn't need to do a lot. Philadelphia is the one where you're scratching your head and you're kind of looking at them and saying, what the hell are you doing? But that's for them to figure out. I think your ranking is pretty spot on, and I don't think there are going to be any more really big moves per se. I thought there may have been one more, but the Eagles beat us to the punch. But I don't know if Washington was even interested. Again, all of these guys that I was interested in, other teams in the division seem to be more interested in them than we were. John Ross, Giants. Anthony Harris, the Eagles. And I told you I was really interested in a one-year deal for a guy like Malik Hooker, who's going to be on a one-year prove-it deal that's going to cost you $2.5 million or something like that. Well, he's on his way to Dallas, and if he wows them, they're meeting with 3 safeties. He's one of the 3. He could easily be signed by the Dallas Cowboys, and that's another guy that I would have loved to have seen in burgundy and gold. So I don't know if there are any real moves left. I think they're more intrigued by trying to re-sign all of their own. We're seeing a lot of tenders and guys that were here last year coming back. I don't know if they're really interested. The market is settling down now. So now that second and third wave of free agents are out there, I don't think we're done. I told you I think we're done with any big names. You know, the biggest name still out there that may be linked to Washington is Ryan Kerrigan, but I just don't see him coming back because he's already made it known what he wants. And that's an opportunity to start. You're not getting that in Washington, so I just don't see them being any rekindling of that marriage. I think that's been dissolved now, and I don't see it coming back. But to your point, I think that the Giants had the best free agency period of any team. But again, they don't hand out trophies in March. We've had to find that out the hard way as Washington fans over the decades. They don't hand out trophies and awards in March. So we'll see how that goes. But in any event, what I want to do is I want to get to one of our sponsors and then come back, and then we'll take all of these super chats and any other comments in social media maneuver. So we'll be right back after a word from one of our sponsors. So this podcast is sponsored by Manscaped, and I've talked about Manscaped profusely, how I endorse this product, how I believe in this product. I told you I would never bring a dud to your doorstep. That's not who I am. So I tried this thing out for 2 weeks before I even came to you with this. And I'm telling you that this product works. The perfect package is exactly that. Included in the perfect package is a ball deodorant. They call it their crop preserver. You put this ball deodorant on after you come out of the shower. Again, towel off your balls thoroughly, get them dry, and apply the crop preserver. You don't wait until your underarms get musty to apply deodorant. Same concept here. Crop preserver is money. You're looking to revive your balls. Maybe you had a light workout. I have one every single morning when I wake up. And if I get a little tart after that, it's easy to just go to the travel bag that they provided me with, which is right here in front of you. And you get that for free with the perfect package as well. We'll talk about that here in a second. But the Crop Reviver is their like cologne type spray that you use. A couple squirts of that and you're bat like cook crack with Manscaped helping you out with the assist. I mean, I can't tell you how many times that has worked wonders for me. I feel myself on the verge. I'm right there on the proverbial fence of going to that musty side. And usually when you get to the musty side, it ain't no going back. That Crop Reviver brings me back just like that. And they also have the Lawnmower 3.0, which has skin-safe technology, so you're not going to be nicked. So if you're shaving below the belt or you're shaving upstairs like me, this thing is money. Whether you're shaving your chest or your underarms or your hands or your arms, or you're shaving your pubic hairs, that Lawnmower 3.0 is the best you're going to find. And so I endorse this product wholeheartedly. Again, you get a travel bag for free. And they also throw in a free pair of boxers as well. So go to manscaped.com. Use the promo code LouieT to get you 20% off plus free shipping. That's manscaped.com. Use the promo code LouieT. Get you 20% off your purchase and free shipping. Remember, unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job. And I've told you this before. My balls, they thank me. And guess what? Your balls will thank you as well. So let's get to social media maneuvers. And what I want to do for social media maneuvers is I want to get to these super chats first. I got a couple things that I want to talk about myself, but I want to allow you guys to take over the show here. So we'll get right to these super chats and start the conversation right now. We're going to kick this thing off with Colton Wheeler, first of all, thank you for the super chat, Colton Wheeler. Greatly appreciate you, my man. Colton Wheeler writes, the more I think about it, the Moore and offensive tackle really makes sense at 19. I'm an Iowa guy. I love Scherff, but I don't want to pay guard 18 to 20 million. With all the talent we got to pay, draft an offensive tackle. So I love Scherff. Scherff is here. He already signed the franchise tag, so he's not going anywhere. So what they need to do is work out a long-term deal like the Giants did, like the Broncos did with Justin Simmons. They need to work out a deal with a guy on the second straight franchise tag like those teams did to lower that cap number and to lock him in long-term. I have confidence that will get done. If they don't, I'm going to be pissed off because that's essentially wasting money. And, you know, you said you love Scherff, but you want to tackle. Well, Scherff doesn't play tackle. He plays guard. So I think tackle makes sense from this perspective. Somebody brought this up, and they're right. And I don't know, again, I don't know how they feel about the player they drafted last year in the 4th round, is Sadiq Charles. But if they don't think Sadiq Charles is the answer at left tackle, then maybe left tackle is where you ought to go at 19 if a guy that you love is available at that pick. And somebody just put it really eloquently. You had Trent Williams. You never replaced him. Okay, what are we doing here? Fair enough. I mean, if you want to be cut and dry and simple and straight to the point, that's essentially it. You had one of the best left tackles in the game, a top 5, top 3 left tackle in the game, and he left, and you never replaced him. So where does that leave you? You know, somebody said, look, I don't want to do the, I don't want to go bottom of the barrel. I don't want to go 3rd, 4th round tackle. We've done that already. Jaron Christian, a prime example of that. Even last year, to a lesser degree, doing it with Sadiq Charles in the 4th round. He's like, if we're going to get a tackle, we need to go premium. I agree. If you're going to go tackle, if you want to upgrade the offensive line, specifically left tackle, I don't want another unleaded tackle. All right. We're looking to put the best you can into this offense, in this vehicle. I want premium gas. I want a premium tackle. I don't want unleaded. We've gone the unleaded route. We did it last year with Cornelius Lucas as a free agent acquisition. We did it the year before with Jaron Christian. We drafted him 2-3 years ago to be the heir apparent to Trent Williams. It hasn't worked out. We've gone the route of premium or unleaded gas. It's time to go premium. If you are going to do that, if you're looking for an upgrade, it needs to be premium this time. 93, not 87. So we'll see what happens there. Thank you for the super chat, Colton Wheeler, who also doubles up. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, Colton Wheeler. Greatly appreciate you, my man. Colton Wheeler writes, then again, I saw Devontae Smith fall into us in Mel Kiper's last mock, in which case I'll shut my mouth. So again, these mock drafts, everybody's going to do one. Everyone's doing one. I'm going to do one. They mean nothing. I think I got like 3 picks right on my last mock draft. So mock draft. This isn't like, you know, ESPN having their bracketologists come up there. I forgot his damn name, but excuse me, where he's getting like out of the 65 teams, he's getting like 63 of them right. Like that's not what this is. You know, mock drafts are for public consumption. It's to get the conversation started. These guys don't know, just like we don't know where these players are going to end up. If he falls to us, absolutely. I talked about that being the only scenario in which, and it's not just him, it could be Jalen Waddle, but it's got to be one of those big 3. We know Jamar Chase isn't falling that far, so I wouldn't even put him in this conversation. It'd have to be one of the Bama boys. But if one of those guys fell into our lap, that's the only way I would even entertain the thought of taking a receiver at 19. I don't want to hear about Rashad Bateman or this or that. I don't want any receivers at 19. You can get a receiver at 51. You can get a receiver with one of your 2 third-round picks. You can get a receiver in the 4th round. We don't have to invest in receiver. If that's even a position they're looking to invest in, you don't have to do that early. You can do that later on, as we've seen with Terry McLaurin. And I'm not saying that Terry McLaurin is the expectation. He's more of the exception to the rule than the norm, but still, you can find gems after the 1st round. We have more pressing needs than wide receiver at 19, but as you mentioned, if one of those elite talents falls to you, at that point, you throw all of that other stuff to the wind and you take the talented football player. You can never go wrong taking a player that has top 10 talent at 19. So I agree with you there as well, Colton Wheeler. Got a super chat from Brendan Walsh. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, Brendan Walsh. Got another one here from John Saluter. Thank you for the super chat, John Saluter. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, N'Keal Harry, are you interested for a fourth? No, I'm not interested in N'Keal Harry for a fourth round pick. I'm treating N'Keal Harry like I treat specialists in the draft. Anything fifth round or later, sign me up. Okay? I'm all in. Sign me up. But you want my fourth round pick? No. I look at the fourth round pick as a guy that not only is going to make this team, but I need him to be a key contributor. Once we get to the fifth, sixth, seventh rounder, those guys are crapshoots. If you get a guy in the fifth, sixth, or seventh round, great. If you don't, nobody's going to kill you for that. But in the fourth round, the first round of the last day of the draft, that's a massive round. I'm not giving the Patriots a fourth round pick for N'Keal Harry. They failed at picking a receiver again in the first round, as they often do. And I've gone through their history in the first round with receivers or early receivers that they've taken, whether first or second round. They just don't do a good job, going all the way back to Bethel Johnson, Chad Jackson. The list goes on and on. Add N'Keal Harry to that list. They don't do a great job of finding talented wide receivers. That said, I was a N'Keal Harry guy coming out of ASU. I thought he was going to be a lot better. And when you listen to Cam Newton, he swears by N'Keal Harry, just thinks that this kid just needs more time. That may be the case, but I'm not interested for a fourth round pick. I'll give you a fifth. I'll give you a sixth. I'll give you a seventh. But I'm not giving you a fourth round pick for N'Keal Harry. I'm good. Thank you. And my thing is, we already have N'Keal Harry on the roster. His name is Antonio Gandy Golden. I don't need another one. He's a carbon copy. I'm good. And now if you said N'Keal Harry is like a John Ross type, small, shifty guy, could play in the slot, maybe play out wide, but offers us some more speed, I'd say maybe let's talk about this. I don't know about a fourth round pick because of the lack of success he's had to this point of his career. And we're going into year 3 and he's pretty much hasn't even made a dent in the league to this point. But a fourth for a guy with some speed, let's see what we can work out. That's not N'Keal Harry. He looks like every other receiver we have on our roster, not named Terry McLaurin and Curtis Samuel. He looks like another 6'3", 6'4" guy, limited speed, that's supposed to be able to catch the football in jump ball situations. Haven't seen that from Cam Sims. Haven't seen that from AGG yet. So I'm good. Supposed to be able to come down with the football in contested situations. I'm going to pass on N'Keal Harry for a fourth. But if you start talking fifth, sixth, seventh, maybe I'm listening. Maybe, just maybe, I'm interested then. CJ Shoots Photo. Thank you for the super chat, CJ Shoots Photo, who writes, truly can't stand Julie Donaldson. Can we please give the fans what they really want and just let Louie T take over the media job already? You're speaking for fans that probably don't even know who I am. There's a small conglomerate of you that know who I am, that watch, that we are able to converse with one another. And then there are a lot of people who have no idea who I am, and that's perfectly fine. Julie Donaldson is good at what she does. I like Julie. I think Julie can be over the top at times. She can be a little annoying at times with some of her tweets, but Julie is doing her job and doing it to the best of her abilities. And you also have to take this into consideration. With the position she's been put into, there's been a lot of negativity since she's taken the job, and she knew what she was getting herself into. I'm not sitting here advocating for Julie Donaldson because she didn't know what she was getting into. She fully knew what she was getting into when she took the job, and she knew it wasn't going to be easy, and she's done her best to navigate these waters, and they've been choppy. I think she's done a really good job. I don't have a problem with Julie. I think some of her tweets can be a little off-putting sometimes, but it is what it is. I'm not mad at Julie. I think she's doing an incredible job. She's never done this before. She is taking on a position that few in her position have been able to say they're taking on. She's the first ever head of communications for any NFL organization. And so for that, she's going into uncharted territory, and she's handling it the best way she knows how. And I actually think she's doing a solid job. So I appreciate you. I'm flattered that you would think I could do that job, but it's probably a lot harder than it may seem from the outside. And I think Julie's actually doing a pretty good job, in my opinion, at least. Thank you for that super chat, CJ Shoots photo. Got another super chat. This one is from Vincent Coe. Thank you for the super chat, Vincent Coe. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, which team is the loser of this free agency so far? It's really hard to classify a team as a loser in free agency. I don't really like doing that because same thing with the draft. You know, you may not like a team's draft, but they have a plan. Is that plan going to work? Will it come to fruition? Will it all tie together like they want it to? It's hard to say. You know, you don't know in the moment. It's hard to grade a draft right as it happens. We do it all the time because in today's society, we want instant gratification. We want immediacy. So we want to grade right now. Draft's over. You got 8 players. How did they do? Well, we don't know how they did. Nobody knew back in 2016, I believe it was, 2017, that the Saints were going to have one of the best drafts we've seen in over a decade. When they got Trey Hendrickson and they got the cornerback from Ohio State and they got Ryan Ramczyk from Wisconsin or Marshawn Lattimore was the corner that they took first, and they took Ryan Ramczyk with the other first round pick that they had, and then they took Trey Hendrickson. They got Marcus Williams in the second, Hendrickson in the third, and then they got another stud, I think, in the 4th round. Like, it was an amazing draft. I think Alex Anzalone was the 4th round pick. They got some mileage out of him. It's an amazing draft. Nobody knew that at the time. You never know in these situations. But to answer your question, I don't think there's a loser. I do think there are some teams that you look at and you say, felt like you could have done more in free agency than what you've done to this point. But again, this is a unique offseason because of the reduced cap, because teams had to get rid of players that they probably in a normal cap situation wouldn't have had to part ways with. And so there were some questionable moves made by some teams, but to me, the biggest loser in free agency to this point has been the Chicago Bears. To spend the money you spent on Allen Robinson with no quarterback really to get him the football, to then go out and pursue Kenny Golladay, knowing that you don't have a true quarterback. And maybe that was their rationale, is that because of our quarterback situation, because we have another now journeyman quarterback in Andy Dalton coming in and essentially starting, and for all intents and purposes, not really upgrading the position, but really taking a lateral step from Mitchell Trubisky, we probably need to get him as many targets as possible to make his job that much easier. Well, go see Dallas. It didn't really work out for Andy Dalton there, and he had as many targets as you could ask for at the wide receiver position and a very capable running back. That's nor here nor there. The bottom line is they were foolish in free agency. They spent frivolously, or tried to at least, at the wide receiver position, but then had to double back and release Kyle Fuller because they didn't have the money to keep him on board. I mean, what are we doing right now to spend $18 million essentially on Allen Robinson? I love him, don't want to let him out of the building, but at the end of the day, you don't have that kind of bread. He doesn't want to be there. You should have allowed him to walk and move forward in a different direction. And I think by them putting themselves in the position that they put themselves in, they reeked of desperation coming into free agency, and I don't think they've done anything to quell that at all whatsoever. Both GM Ryan Pace and head coach Matt Nagy are dead men walking. They both are essentially lame ducks at their respective positions, and I don't think they've done anything in this free agency period to make anybody feel like they're any more qualified for the job and that they're going to turn it around in 2021. And it's crazy to say that because they're coming off of a playoff season. People forget that they were the 7th seed in the NFC, but they went out so meekly in the postseason, and they don't seem like a team that's ascending. They seem like a team that's running on a hamster wheel, just in place. And so they may even take a step backwards after the moves made this offseason, because I think Mitchell Trubisky, you can say what you want about him. I know a lot of you think he stinks, and that's fine. I don't necessarily disagree with that, but I disagree to what extent that he stinks. I don't think he's as bad as you guys out there think. And to me, I think they didn't upgrade the position. At best, they took a lateral step. I would argue that they actually downgraded the position because Andy Dalton isn't running any goddamn where. At least Mitchell Trubisky can introduce the threat of athleticism and wheels. You're not getting that with Andy Dalton. So I think they actually took a step back. But that's just me. We'll see what happens. The Bears, for me, are your quote-unquote loser of free agency. I just think they didn't have a very productive free agency when it's all said and done. Thank you for that super chat, Vincent Coe. Got another super chat here from 99 Problems Chase Ain't One. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, call me one-sided, but I want Zaven Collins and Jabril Cox first and second, and Brevin Jordan tight end, and Stokes cornerback out of Georgia in the third, fourth. Grab a quarterback. I love a defense. Yeah, you're one-sided for sure. They're definitely not. The draft isn't going to unfold that way. One, you're not going to get Collins and then probably still turn around and be able to get Jabril Cox at 51. Now, if you traded up, if you really love Jabril Cox that much, you'd have to trade up. I wouldn't be shocked if he came off the board late stages of the first. I think he's more of a second-round pick myself. Brevin Jordan, you're not getting both of those linebackers and still getting tight end Brevin Jordan or the cornerback Stokes after he just ran a 4.27. There's no way you're going to get either one of those guys in the third. Brevin Jordan is interesting because we'll see how the tight ends go. Over the last couple of years, tight end has been one of those positions, especially last year in particular. The year before that, I thought it was a deep tight end crop and one that I was really, really excited about. And they've proven to be really good tight ends in this league to this point. I think this draft is closer to that than it is last year, but I still feel like the jury's out on how people feel about the tight end position, because right now, Brevin Jordan for some, Pat Freiermuth for others is your second tight end in this draft. I don't know where that second tight end comes off the board at, though. We know the first one is coming off in the first round. Where in the first round, I can't say. I could easily see him being top 10. I could see him easily being top 15. I don't see him going past 20. But after that, where does Pat Freiermuth or Brevin Jordan come off the board at? Could it be like last year where we didn't see a tight end until the second round? Obviously, I'm talking about after Kyle Pitts comes off the board. Could you not see another tight end until the late 50s like we saw last year? Or I think the Notre Dame tight end last year went to Chicago at like 48 or 49 or something like that. Could we see another situation like that? Maybe. It's possible, but highly unlikely that you come away with all the items that you've put on the shopping list. Very, very unlikely. You may be able to come away with one or two of those items, but if you do, you just named a bunch of first, second round guys more likely than not, and you're trying to get some of them in the third, fourth, and it isn't going to work out that way, more likely than not. We'll see what happens, but we'll see. Obviously, you love defense. And grabbing a quarterback in the fourth round, I don't necessarily disagree with that, even though the one that I would be interested in, I'm interested in two guys, but Davis Mills is the guy that I'm intrigued by out of Stanford. I think his draft stock is going to elevate, and before we know it, he's going to be a day 2 pick. I was trying to sneak him into the start of day 3 in the fourth round. I could easily see him pushing for a day 2 selection. So we'll see how that goes. Thank you for the super chat, Mike Lowry. Really appreciate you, man. As always, thank you so much for that super chat. Got another one here from Colton Wheeler. Thank you for tripling up, Colton Wheeler. Greatly appreciate you, my man. Colton Wheeler writes, just to clarify, I know Scherff doesn't play tackle, but we can't keep all of our young talent if we start paying guards $20 million a year. I want to draft an offensive tackle and move Charles to guard if Scherff deal doesn't happen. Excuse me. I see what you're saying. And I understood what you were saying before, but I did want to point that out just in case. And I know you knew he was a guard, and you specifically said offensive tackle. You could have just said an offensive lineman. You said offensive tackle, so I knew what you were specifying. And I get it. $20 million for a guard per year isn't smart. It really isn't. However, there are ways to, put the deal in motion and not pay him in a ridiculous amount of money. All right, inordinate amount of money. They can do this deal and have it be advantageous for the team cap wise. Eventually, you're going to have to pay him, and he's going to have a high cap number. There's no getting around that. But he's already signed the franchise tag. They've already put it out there. He's already signed it. So there's no going back. They're locked in to the $18 million that he's due this year if a long-term deal isn't reached. So there's no getting out of this thing. You know, that was only possible if Brandon Scherff decided, I'm going to wait to sign my tender. Well, he signed that franchise tag tender. He's not going anywhere. He'll be here. He'll be making $18 million plus this upcoming season if they can't reach a deal with him. And I'll tell you what, I'm not happy about that. But at the same time, I know why they did what they did. I'm putting the ball in their court and putting the onus on them to get the long-term deal done. As I mentioned at the top of the show, the Giants got it done on the second year franchise taggy with Leonard Williams. The Broncos got it done on a second year taggy with Justin Simmons in Denver. Why can't we do the same with Brandon Scherff? I get it done. That to me, if you're not out here signing any more free agents, if you're just going to keep signing the, Cole Norrises of the world and or Jarrett Norrises of the world and bringing all of these inferior guys that are just strictly depth back, if that's what you're working on now, you should be working on hammering out this long-term deal with Brandon Scherff. To me, that should be the biggest thing because it'll free up $7, $8, $9, $10 million worth of cap space immediately. So get it done. Got another super chat from Mike Lowry. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, Mike Lowry. Greatly appreciate you. My man Mike Lowry writes, why isn't anyone talking about Davis Mills from Stanford? Do you think we should draft him? Or he said, do you think we should draft a quarterback, or what do you think about him? I've talked about Davis Mills already. I put out a video about him. I talked about him as a guy that was right on the cusp of my top 7. He's at 8 right now, my quarterback rankings. When I started out the process, he was right around 6. I had a couple of guys leapfrog him, and he ended up being at 8. He could easily get back into my top 7 before the draft gets here. I want to go take another look at Davis Mills a little bit closer. But I listened to Daniel Jeremiah talk about Davis Mills after having attended his pro day. And Daniel Jeremiah said that the ball just comes off of his hand with velocity. Like there's a life to his ball, and that he was really impressed. And I talked about Davis Mills being a sneaky athlete that people don't give enough credit to. You see the knee braces and you just think, okay, this guy can't run. He's a Josh Rosen type, because Josh Rosen was a double knee brace guy at UCLA. And when you see him, you're thinking, okay, this guy, he's got some injury history, that's for sure, but he can move, he can scoot, man. He's got some wheels. So I'm intrigued by Davis Mills. I told you that I wouldn't mind taking a 3rd, 4th round flyer on Davis Mills. We got 2 3rd-round picks. I think it may actually take a 3rd rounder if you're really interested in Davis Mills. The problem with getting him is that you already got 3 quarterbacks on the roster, 3 veterans, that is. How do you make space for a 4th guy? Because if you draft Davis Mills, he has to make your team. You can't put him on waivers and expose him to the rest of the league and expect him to clear waivers so that you can then put him on your practice squad. You would have to release one of your 2 veterans that you got from Carolina in either Heineke or Kyle Allen. And look, I don't think anybody else around the league is clamoring for Taylor Heineke or Kyle Allen, but everybody watched the playoff game with Taylor Heineke last year, and Kyle Allen isn't a stiff in this league. It's the reason Washington decided to trade a 5th round pick for him. Like, not saying that he was going to get big money or conjure up tons of interest had the Panthers decided to move on from him because it was a new regime in Carolina and they probably wanted nothing to do with Kyle Allen. That said, had they released him, there may have been other teams interested in bringing Kyle Allen in as a backup. So I don't think that has changed. If anything, I think his market might have grown a bit after seeing him play a little bit last season. And I'm just saying, I've always told you guys this, there's always somebody eyeballing your stuff. You think that nobody is looking at your stuff, but somebody secretly is watching you and you have no idea. And I tell you guys this all the time. Sometimes I feel like somebody's watching me and I got no privacy. I'm telling you, somebody's watching your stuff. So go ahead and cut loose Taylor Heineke, expecting to put him on the practice squad, or cut loose Kyle Allen. And I'm not saying that they won't clear waivers and you won't get them back, but I wouldn't be shocked if you did. So drafting Davis Mills means one of those guys could be exposed because you're not cutting Ryan Fitzpatrick, which is why I didn't want to sign him in the first place, because you're paying him $10 million, you're not cutting him. He's here to play, whether it's in a starting capacity or a backup one, he's here to play. More likely than not in a starting capacity. So you're cutting one of the other guys, more likely than not. And I'm not saying it's the end of the world if you have to cut one of those guys to hold on to Davis Mills, but I mean, you don't want to cut one of your 20-somethings. That's all I'm saying. But at the end of the day, I'm interested in Davis Mills. You asked me, was I interested? I'm definitely interested. And I think he's a name that will continue to gain a little steam as we get closer and closer to the draft. But right now, all the talk is about Lawrence. More so, Justin Fields and Trey Lance are the guys that are polarizing, because I think a lot of people have assumed that Zach Wilson and Trevor Lawrence are going to go 1-2. I think it's after those two is when the real discussion begins. Who's your third quarterback? Who's your fourth quarterback? And so I think as we get closer to the draft, that's when you'll start to hear a guy like Davis Mills, hear his name mentioned more and more often, because guess what? Most teams aren't coming away with Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, or Justin Fields, or hell, even Mac Jones to a lesser degree. Somebody's going to have to settle for Kyle Trask or a Davis Mills or Sam Ehlinger or a Kellen Mond. You know, somebody's going to have to settle for one of those guys. And that's when you're going to hear Davis Mills' name start to come up, I think, a lot more as we get closer to the draft. Thank you for that super chat and doubling up, Mike Lowry. Excuse me. J Mart, double up, Thank you for doubling up, J Mart. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, offensive tackle or linebacker at 19, need a starter / difference maker. Again, we talked about this. Both of those positions to me are at the top of the list as we sit here on March the 24th. That is subject to change. We'll see what happens with this second and maybe even third wave of free agency leading into the draft. We'll see if any trades happen. But right now, going into the draft, as we sit here on March 24th, having done what we've done in free agency and having and knowing what this roster looks like and who's coming back from last year, tackle, and again, I keep reiterating this. I can't spell this out for you guys any more than I already have. I don't know. This is, to me, the biggest question mark for me right now. I don't have a real feel for the sense of what they have at tackle or how they feel about the position as a whole. When I listen to John Keim and JP Finley and people that are close to the team with sources within that building and in those walls, they sound convinced that they want an upgrade at left tackle specifically. If that is in fact the case, then I think tackle and linebacker would head the list of items at 19. But here's the thing. They did draft Sadiq Charles last year in the 4th round. They're not down on Sadiq Charles as an athlete or what he's capable of. They may be down on him being a reliable option And they may not want to go in, similar to the quarterback position. They may have a bunch of stuff there, but they may not be totally satisfied with what they have at the top of the list of stuff. Similar to the quarterback position. They had stuff, but they weren't satisfied at what was at the top of the list of those items at quarterback. Same thing may be able to be said for offensive tackle. You got Cornelius Lucas. You got Jaron Christian. You got the Florida Gators former tackle that we traded from Vegas that they re-signed to a one-year deal. You got all these guys. He's more of a right tackle, as he proved last year, than he is a left tackle, David Sharp. So you have guys, but you may not be happy with what you have. If Sadiq Charles is a guy that they are happy with, that they are excited about, that they do want to see be healthy and be given a chance at tackle, then that brings tackle down a notch. Not saying that they won't still draft one, but it may not be as high on the pecking order of needs as you guys think. I still contend that they aren't as hell-bent on grabbing a tackle at 19 as everyone makes them out to be, but I could be wrong. You know, it seems to be pointing closer towards them wanting a tackle at 19 than them not wanting one at 19, but I wouldn't be surprised if they took one, a linebacker, or just BPA at 19, to be honest with you. But you're right. And it doesn't matter if it's 19, if it's 31, if it's 6, if it's 26. You need a starter and a difference maker in the first round. Hell, you need a starter and a difference maker in the second round as well, which is why our failures in the second round have been just as damning as the lack of success in the first round as well. Like, you can't whiff on first and second round picks. We haven't whiffed on first rounders of late, but we've had, and I've already laid out the track record in the second round. It's atrocious. It might be the worst in the league in the second round. This new regime, this new conglomerate that they've formed in the front office of Marty Herney, Martin Mayhew, and Ron Rivera, they have to get the second round right. They have to. That's not optional. They have to get the second round right. We haven't had a decent second round pick in Washington in forever. They have to get that right. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, J Mark. John Perez, my man JP, thank you for the super chat. Writes, would you take Rondale Moore, wide receiver from Purdue, at 19? No, I would not. Rondale Moore's best football came in 2018. We are in 2021. If you are look, he may get back to his 2018 form as a freshman, where he burst onto the scene and looked like a guy that was going to be one of the best wide receivers for the duration of his collegiate career. But it never materialized. Injuries and other factors, including the quarterback position at Purdue, were unstable. There are a lot of factors as to why he never lived up to the promise of what we saw in 2018 as a freshman. But there's no mistaking that this guy's a talent. He's fast as shit. We just saw him run, what was it, a 4.27 40. He's undersized. They had him listed at 5'9" at Purdue. Nobody was dumb. I knew he wasn't 5'9". He's 5'7". He was measured at the pro day. He's 5'7". He was scared that people were going to hold that against him. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. Look, one thing is for certain. There aren't many 4.27 guys walking around in the NFL right now. With that kind of speed, shit happens. People are afraid, and you can have a difference maker on your team with that kind of speed. That being said, I also want skill too. And you can find guys that can run with a bigger frame. Like, for me, you got a guy that kind of resembles that. Now, Curtis Samuel is much bigger than Rondale Moore. He's not 5'7", okay? Curtis Samuel is closer to 6 feet, probably more like 5'11", but he's closer to 6 feet than he is 5'7", obviously. But they're similar type players. You know, Curtis Samuel was a 4.31 guy, I believe. He can run. You can do a lot of different things with him. I talked about maximizing Curtis Samuel, and if you don't, then to me, you wasted your money if you're not doing what the Panthers did with him last year. And someone brought up a point that I'm not disputing because it's facts, that he ran the football 40 times last year out of necessity because there was no Christian McCaffrey. My counter to that is they had other guys that they could have handed the football off to, including Mike Davis, that had an exceptional year that he just parlayed into a 2-year contract with the Atlanta Falcons. They didn't have to give Curtis Samuel the football 40 times, but they did it because not only did they not have Christian McCaffrey, and I guarantee you, if McCaffrey was healthy the entire year, he doesn't have 40 carries, but they also realized this is the best utilization of Curtis Samuel. If we want to maximize what this guy is, we need to hand him the football as well as get it to him in space. That's why they did what they did. I think Washington, I'm not saying that he has to carry it 40 times, but they do need to make sure that they're utilizing him in every way, shape, and form possible to maximize what he brings to the table. A guy like Rondale Moore strikes me as another Curtis Samuel type. Not a true wide receiver in the sense of, line him up and let him go bonkers on somebody, but more of, hey, with 4.27 speed, let's get him in space. All right. Tyreek Hill, to me, is one of the few guys that we've seen with that kind of speed actually develop into a route runner. Most of these speed guys, Tavon Hawk, we've seen around the league in the last, I'd say, decade and a half, that we've seen with this kind of speed and this kind of difference-making ability coming to the league, they haven't really evolved at the receiver position as true receivers, but just as a threat, whether it's Percival Harvin or it's Tavon Austin, to a lesser degree, a much lesser degree, John Ross, but even John Brown. We saw a little bit of it last year with Henry Ruggs, these guys that we know can run, but can you be a dynamic route runner too? I don't think Rondale Moore is necessarily that at this point. He could get to that, but at 19, I think it's a little too rich for my blood. I think that there are other things that Washington can do to better their football team at 19 than drafting another small, shifty, fast, but small, wide receiver. And I'm not saying we're not in the market for another small receiver, because I'm not sure that we have a true slot, but I told you Curtis Samuel to me would be your best option in the slot. I still think we need a true number 2 receiver, but that guy may already be on the roster. So I'm not as hell-bent on drafting a receiver as all of you are out there. I want to see what some of these young boys have in store. Like, if we go through another year of AGG and we see that, okay, either he can't stay healthy or like this is who he is, like he's not getting much better, then you can start to say, all right, maybe we whiffed on that draft pick in the 4th round. And then if Cam Sims is still dropping the football and, inconsistent at best, then you say, okay, maybe Cam Sims isn't the answer as your number 2. And then if Harmon comes back and he's just average, and look, he's coming into a new system. He hasn't played, like I said, for all intents and purposes, he's a redshirt sophomore going into year 3 because he didn't play last year. And this is a new system that he didn't get a chance to perform in last year when everybody else did. So he's kind of playing catch up from that standpoint. I want to see what he does as well if he gets an opportunity. If we realize that with all those guys I just mentioned, none of them are legitimate number 2 option or 3 options, then that's when you may need to go back to the well next year and say, okay, maybe we need to go out, draft a guy, or maybe we need to go into free agency and find someone. But I'm not necessarily hell-bent. After signing Curtis Samuel, I'm not necessarily hell-bent on going out and getting another guy in the draft, especially early. If you told me 4th, 5th, 6th round, you want to take a flyer on a young guy, knock yourself out. I don't know if you necessarily need to do that at 19. Even 51, I think, is early for receiver in this draft. To be honest with you, I think there are other things that we could take care of in this draft that would help this team exponentially than another receiver that you are adding to a group that is already relatively young as is. J Mart, thank you for tripling up. Greatly appreciate you, my man. J Mart writes, did we not look at Taylor, Mariota, Fitz, options 3 and 4? So Mariota, Tyrod Taylor, I don't know if they ever looked at him or not. I know Mariota, they explored that option. And the Raiders, we saw what the Raiders were up to. Okay. The Raiders pretty much massaged that entire situation. We talked about that on the pod on Monday, how the Raiders pretty much made sure that the quarterback market, free agent market, dried all the way up. There were no more potential suitors for Mariota before they came to him and said, hey, you take this pay cut or else. They knew what they were doing. I'm pretty sure Washington went to them and said, hey, what's it going to take to get Mariota? And they played hardball on purpose because they really didn't want to move on from Marcus Mariota. They like having him as their backup. They got him for one more year. Also, there is a poison pill in Mariota's contract that escalates his salary to a number that teams might not have been comfortable with. But you could have gotten Mariota here and then done his deal. You could have got him here and said, hey, we ain't looking to pay you that much money. And there could have been an understanding upon trading for him that, look, this is what we want to do. And his side could have said, yeah, we're good with that. And you could have worked that out. Like people talking about this escalator and that. You could have, if he was okay with that, and you would have known that before you traded for him, because you would have talked to him and his people first to let them know what the thought process was. And if they weren't on board, then you wouldn't trade for him. So they explored options, and Fitz was the one that they decided to go with. Got another super chat. This one is from Terry Maples. Thank you for your super chat, Terry Maples. Greatly appreciate you. Terry Maples writes, Caden Stearns in the 5th would be our Cam Curl of this year's draft. I promise you, Lou, this kid is a special center fielder with great ball skills, HTTR. Haven't looked at the safeties yet, so that is a name. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and write his name down. I'm pretty sure that he will be in my list of guys that I need to take a look at. But just in case he's not, I will put him down on the list. I've heard that name before, so I'm pretty sure he's a guy that if I'm looking at 15 guys at the safety position, he's going to be one of those 15. But I will definitely take a look at him. Thank you for that, Terry Maples. Got another super chat. This one's from King of the North. My man, King of the North, thank you for the super chat as always. Who writes, Dan went into the owners meeting with rumors of being ousted. He walked out waivers from the NFL and 100% of the team. That ain't no pushover, bro. That man ain't no pushover, bro. So here's the thing. You have to understand. The perception outwardly was that Dan was on the verge of being ousted. I don't think that was ever the case internally in league circles amongst these owners. I don't think they were ever close to pushing the button on Dan. Okay? That's all it would take, is for them to push the button on Dan's ass and he's gone. I don't think they were even close. They didn't even open the case that the button is in to get to the button to then have to press it. That case isn't even open. It's still locked. Okay? They didn't even ask Roger for the key to that case. I don't think they were ever close. So I think the outward perception that, man, Dan is on the ropes. He's rope-a-doping. Dan's fighting us off, and one more punch, one more blow without Dan throwing a punch back and the referee might step in. I think that was overly exaggerated. Very much so. I think that was a very, very big over-exaggeration by the fans because we wanted it so bad. And I can't speak for you guys. I didn't think it was happening. Not after we saw what the NFL was doing with the investigation and how they were handling things. I knew at that point, Dan's not going anywhere. He's not going anywhere. That's why I stopped talking about it. I don't know if you realize, I stopped talking about it altogether when all the shit was coming out about how nasty it was getting with him and the minority owners. And I didn't talk about any of that stuff really because it wasn't important to me because the end result was going to remain the same. He wasn't going anywhere. And that was the overarching theme. And because of that, why waste my breath? Why waste my breath? So now there's another way to look at this. Could he be getting 100% of the team so that it's more easy for him to sell it when it becomes time to sell. That's another angle to look at it if you want to be glass half full. At the end of the day, he's not selling the team. This is a part of who he is as a person. Daniel Snyder, the philanthropist, Daniel Snyder, the millionaire, billionaire, whatever he would have been without the football team, all of that exists in sheer anonymity, other than people that run in those same circles with him. He's not known to the masses without being the owner of the Washington football team. It is who he is now, okay? He may own this entity. He may be making some money off to the side from these ventures over here, but nobody knows him for that. They know him because he's the owner of the Washington football team. Matthew McConaughey isn't his friend if he's not the owner of the Washington football team. There's a prestige that comes with this. That is now baked into who he is as a person now. You can't just say Daniel Snyder of XYZ Corporation or XYZ Tycoon Billionaire. It's Daniel Snyder, owner of the Washington football team. He takes pride in that following his name. Because again, that's part of who he is now. So I don't think he's selling. And to also talk about Dan, he's not a pushover. Anybody that thinks because he's 5'8", $170, and he does clownish things, it appears that this guy's a clown. He didn't get here on accident. None of these NFL owners, they may not be great people individually, and you can try to give back as much as you want. You can be a philanthropist and you can give to this organization and this charity. So you still got blood on your hands a lot of times, and it's hard to wash off. Even if you give up all this money, still hard to wash some of the blood off your hands. But again, I don't know Daniel Snyder personally, and I'm not going to attack him because I don't know. I only can tell you what's been told to me. Doesn't seem like a great guy. But at the end of the day, he got here because he's a hell of a businessman, and he is no pushover. Okay? There's a reason he was able to sell Joe Gibbs on coming back here, Joe Gibbs 2.0. There's a reason he was able to sell. He's been able to sell. All right? As a wise man once told me, he is a hustler, baby. He can sell water to a well. He was born to get cake, move on and switch states, cop the coupe with the roof gone and switch plates. All right? I'm going to just tell you like this. He never follows orders. Dick face, get your shit straight, effer. This is Dan Snyder. All right? Bottom line is, Dan isn't a chump. It's the reason he was able to sell Joe Gibbs on coming here. It's the reason he was able to sell Mike Shanahan on coming here. It was a reason he was able to sell after all that has been said and all the things that have been done and how low we were as an organization. He was still able to sell Ron Rivera because we didn't think we were going to be able to get a coach the caliber of Ron Rivera because we frankly didn't deserve one, his caliber, because many have tried, all with the exception of Joe Gibbs 2.0 have failed under Daniel Snyder's tenure as Washington football team owner. So what was going to make Ron Rivera any different? If I'm Ron, this is a cancerous situation. It's toxic. I'm staying as far away as possible. And somehow he was able to get Ron in a room, sit him down, and convince him this is better than the Giants job. This is better than the Cowboys job if that one were to open up, and it ultimately did. This is better than the Browns job. This is better than any other job that's out there. We may be first. And Ron made it abundantly clear that we were the first, and that was important at the time. But Ron could have easily said, I'm going to wait out my options and see. Trust me, your job ain't going nowhere. Don't nobody want this shit. He wouldn't have said that, but he could have been thinking that this job ain't going nowhere. You won't fill this thing, over the next couple of weeks or even a month from now. You're going to have to wait on this. I'll be back, but I'm going to go check out some of these other stops, see what they talking about. And if I like the shit you talking about and the money you talking about, I'll be back. He didn't do that. You know why? Because Dan sold his ass a bill of goods. And if there's one thing Daniel Snyder can do, he can sell some shit. He's been doing it for years. Before he got this organization, he's been selling shit. Since he's got the organization, he's been selling shit to us as consumers. We don't fall for that banana in the tailpipe anymore. We know better. But he's been selling us on the promise of a bright future. He's been selling us on a new stadium that's never coming. And he's been selling players and coaches alike on this is where you need to be. So, Dan's no pushover. I will definitely concede that. Thank you for this. But he was, don't fool yourself. He didn't go into these meetings on the ropes. You know, he wasn't Muhammad Ali rope-a-doping against George Foreman. All right, that's not what was happening here. All right, he knew he was safe, always safe. You're right. You're probably right. He's probably like 5'5", 5'4". Whoever said that? Who was that? Who said he ain't 5'8"? I just threw a random height out there. That's short to me. I mean, I'm not a big guy my damn self, but Daniel Morgan says he's like 5'4" at best. You're probably right. You're probably right. Anyway, I gave him the benefit of the doubt. Got another super chat. This one is from J Mart. Thank you for your 4th super chat of the night or evening. J Mart, greatly appreciate you, my man. J Mart writes, did we miss on free safety? 10 safeties have signed deals. Did we miss on safety? I thought there were some opportunities. There's still some opportunities. I told you Malik Hooker, if you don't want to over-invest in the position, you want to spend minimal, very negligible money on the position, but you'd like to kick the tires on somebody. We did it last year with Sean Davis. Negligible money that you can get out of. If you're not satisfied with what you get before the season starts, you can cut his ass. They did that with Sean Davis last year. I was all in. After seeing what the market ended up being for Anthony Harris, why couldn't you have done 1 year, $5 million? You think Anthony Harris wouldn't have been excited to come play behind this defensive line? Seriously? We couldn't have extended him a 1 year, $5 million deal? Malik Hooker, I'm telling you, we've seen all the 1 year prove it deals across the league. I remember when 1 year prove it deals were $4.5 million. And then last year, a prove it deal escalated to astronomical, well, 2 years ago, I think it was. Like 3 years ago, it was 4.5 million, and then it climbed to astronomical heights. No, it was last year. It was 2 years ago. The going rate on a prove-it deal, 1 year prove-it deal, was like 4.5. Then last year it was crazy. Guys like what's the big tall receiver from Carolina that signed with the Packers but opted out of the season? Devin Funchess. He signed in Indy, so it was 2 years ago. I retract that last statement. It was 2 years ago. 3 years ago, the going rate for a 1 year prove-it deal was 4.5. 2 years ago, that number skyrocketed, and guys were getting all kinds of money all over the map. Devin Funchess, 1 year, $14 million in Indy to prove it? What? For Devin Funchess? But that's how the money had gotten to that point. Everybody kind of reeled it in. Funchess took another 1 year prove-it deal in Green Bay. It wasn't as lucrative last year, but he opted out. What you're seeing is this reduced cap coupled with, if I'm a player, and I've said this multiple times on different platforms, if I'm a player and I think that this market is a little low for what I thought I was going to be able to command on the free agent market, if I feel like my offers are low, I'm signing a 1 year deal because the cap should skyrocket next year. We're assuming fans will be back in the stands at all 32 facilities and stadiums this year. To what capacity, we don't know. But I feel like the NFL, by the time we get to September, will have come up with some kind of protocol and they would have had the opportunity to watch Major League Baseball do it and find out what the pitfalls were there, just like they were able to do with COVID-19. They were able to take a step back, watch the NBA do their thing in the bubble, watch Major League Baseball do their thing, and they were able to then come up with a plan that made them the best league in all of sports to handle COVID-19. They're going to do the same thing with crowd attendance. They're going to watch what Major League Baseball does. They're going to watch what, all these other entities do. And then they're going to come up with a plan based off of what they've seen everybody else do. And I think they're going to have asses in seats, and they're going to have revenue generated because of it. And the cap is going to go back up. And if you are now, Harris is different. He's going to be 30 next year. I don't see someone heavily investing in a safety, but he could get a 2-3 year deal and have it be good money for him. Hell, Nelson Aguilar got a 2-year, $26 million deal this year. Who the hell saw that coming? I think it was 2 years, $32 million. I think it was $16 million a pop for Nelson Aguilar. Who saw that coming? Yeah, he was good last year with the Raiders. Not $16 million a year good. But that's what the Patriots decided they wanted to pay him. Good for him. I can't knock the hustle. I'm just telling you this. Anthony Harris signed for 1 year, $5 million. Malik Hooker is going to sign for 1 year, $2.5 million. That's the going rate for a prove-it deal. John Brown signed a 1 year, $2.5 million deal. The Colts, I talked about one of my best values was Malik Hooker. Also, a teammate of his in Indianapolis was the running back Marlon Mack. He signed for $2 million. That's the going rate for a prove-it deal, essentially. Why wouldn't you do that? I mean, I don't understand that. Why wouldn't you do that if you're Washington? Did we miss on safety? I'd say yes. I'm seeing all of these guys go back to where they were that were options. I saw the 49ers. I think they re-signed one of their safeties. I want to say it was Jaquiski Tart the other day, a guy that I was interested in. I think we missed on all of the safeties at this point. I don't think, other than Malik Hooker, who might sign with Dallas. So we'll see what happens there. But anybody worth having. You're going to talk to a bunch of Washington fans. Hey, Trey Boston's still available. F Trey Boston. Okay? There's a reason why Trey Boston ass is out there every goddamn year. And Washington fans do the same shit every year. We can get Trey Boston. Don't get me started on that. Anyway, I digress. Got another super chat from Viscount. Thank you for the super chat, Viscount. Greatly appreciate you. Viscount writes, first of all, before I even read this, let me go ahead and beg of you, plead of you, if you haven't already done so, please hit the subscribe button and become a member of the Louie T Network. Also, hit that notification bell so you don't miss a thing. And if you're watching, there are over 250 of you out there. Only 78 likes. Please, please, please hit the like button. Let's get this thing up over 100. We are 22 likes away from getting it over the century mark. Let's see if we can't get that done. That is imperative to the success of this and future videos on this channel by getting the likes up over 100. So please do that. I'm going to thank you in advance for those of you who haven't hit the like button, assuming that you will. Viscount, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Viscount writes, some teams have made lots of changes to starting personnel and free agency, i.e. Patriots, whereas others like Washington football team have retained the bulk of their starting squad and added. Surely this is the less risky approach. This is the way free agency is supposed to be. The Patriots, the Jaguars, the Texans, they're all outliers. That's not how free agency is supposed to work. You're not supposed to see 12, 13, 14 guys signed on 1, 2, 3 year deals to come play for your football team in free agency. That's not how free agency is set up. And honestly, that's not a successful way to go about free agency. I was listening to Gil Brandt, and he brought up a point that if you've been following the league long enough, it's not a surprise to you, and you know this to be a fact. But the teams that spend lavishly in free agency aren't the ones that are winning. It's the teams that don't make a ton of noise that are the ones that are the most successful year in and year out. Why? Because 9 times out of 10, they're retaining their own and they're focused on the draft. They're not looking to spend money on guys outside of their building because they're drafting young, good, talented players. And when those contracts are up, they're looking to retain their services, not looking to acquire guys from the outside and bring them in. I'm not saying that you shouldn't participate in free agency and that if you do, you're wrong and you're going to lose because of it. I'm just saying, look at the Steelers, look at the Packers, look at the Chiefs, look at the teams that routinely don't really participate. The Vikings are usually a good football team. The Saints are another team. Look, they'll dip their toe in when it's necessary, and the Chiefs have been a little bit more active this year because they've lost some stuff. So they've had to go and try to bring some stuff in. Samuel Watkins left this year in free agency. He's going to end up signing somewhere. I thought it was going to be Baltimore, and I told you, look for him to sign in Baltimore either today or the next day after. Well, he's in Indy right now. Maybe he gets a deal done with them. The talks reportedly were positive between him and the Baltimore Ravens. We'll see what happens, but they lost Samuel Watkins. They need to replace him. So they're interested in bringing in a veteran wide receiver. They lost Chris Conley like 2 years prior to that. And so they need to bring in a young receiver, a veteran they would probably prefer to go along with the guys that they already have. But at the end of the day, the Chiefs, and they moved on from both of their tackles. So they had to upgrade the offensive line. So you're seeing them be aggressive in that regard. You spend all this money on Patrick Mahomes. We all know about the narrative of the Super Bowl. The offensive line was terrible, this, that, and the third. So yeah, they're going to upgrade the offensive line because that's the one thing that stopped them from going back to back this year, if we're being brutally honest with one another. So the Chiefs usually aren't overly aggressive in free agency. They'll go in and get a honey badger, Tyrann Mathieu, pick him out, and then they're done. Green Bay, every now and again, they'll go and get that one guy, or like they did a couple off seasons ago, they went and got the Smith brothers. That was it. They were done. They went and got the Smith brothers. They got the safety from Adrian Amos. That was the year they were aggressive. You don't hear anything from Green Bay usually in free agency. Every now and again, you dip your toe in there, you grab some stuff, you get out. The Steelers one year, they went and got Joe Hayden. Like, generally speaking, these teams don't make a lot of moves because that's not what you are supposed to do in free agency. The Patriots are overhauling their roster because for the first time in a long time, they're in a position to do it. One, because they're not trying to constantly build around Tom Brady. Two, they have to because they're not building around Tom Brady. They need, because Cam Newton is at quarterback, you need to make sure the rest of the team is set up so that he doesn't have to do it like he needed to do it last year by himself on offense. So the Texans, the Jags, both new front offices, different direction. It's not uncommon to see new organizations when they turn over with new guys taking over, GMs, what may have you, to turn over the roster because a lot of those guys that were there, they didn't draft or they didn't sign. So it's not uncommon to see that. But, I mean, it's been crazy this year how many deals those teams have went out and signed this offseason and how many players they've brought in to turn over the roster. You don't see that very often. You're more likely to see what Washington has done. You go in, you pick out specific guys, and you're done. You may bring back a couple of smaller free agents that you want to sign or whatnot, but that's usually what happens in free agency. So it's not only the less risky approach, it's usually the smarter approach as well. Thank you for that super chat, Viscount. Got another super chat. This one is from Vincent Coe. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, Vincent Coe. Greatly appreciate you. Vincent Coe writes, what do you think about the tight end from Penn State, Pat Freiermuth? I like Pat Freiermuth a lot. Everybody gets this comp now. If you're big and you wear 87, you're baby Gronk. Not everybody's baby Gronk, okay? So we can stop with that. You know, that was a nickname thrown around a couple of years ago. I remember watching him, and they were throwing around that name. He's not baby Gronk. But what he is a really solid pass catcher. He's got above average athleticism. He's not going to knock your socks off. But I've talked about this. Some of the better tight ends in the league over the last, 7-8 years haven't been these tremendous athletes. Outside of, George Kittle and to a lesser degree, Travis Kelce, who is a tremendous athlete, but he wasn't a 4-5 guy. He's a 4-6 guy. Outside of those two, though, specifically, we haven't seen dominance from the elite athletes at the tight end position. We once had that little spell there when the Antonio Gates, the Tony Gonzalez's, and the Julius Thomas's of the world, the ex-basketball players turned tight ends who were uber athletic, could run, jump. That was in vogue. And everyone still wants those kinds of guys, which is why Kyle Pitts is going to be the first tight end taken off the board. However, if you can run routes, if you can find ways to get open, Jason Witten is just as effective as Travis Kelce. Okay? Greg Olsen, later on in his career, wasn't the athlete that he was early in his career when he was a Chicago Bear in the early stages of his Carolina career. Wasn't the same guy running after the catch but he could still get open. Kyle Rudolph, not the best athlete in the world. He knows how to get open. Okay? Zach Ertz is a 4-7 guy, but he wins. If you can find a way to win, you can have a great impact on an offense in this league at the tight end position. And I think Pat Freiermuth is one of those guys. He's a solid blocker. He can catch the football. I do think that there is a bright future in this league for Pat Freiermuth, and that's why I think more likely than not Brevin Jordan to some of your surprises out there, but Pat Freiermuth may ultimately be the second tight end off the board in this year's draft. We will see. Thank you for the super chat and doubling up, Vincent Coe. Got another super chat. This one is from King of the North. Thank you for doubling up. Double up. Greatly appreciate you. As always, King of the North, who writes, he said, it was interesting to hear the Pats explain that they were so aggressive because this year presented a rare opportunity to get deals on good players because there was less competition due to low cap. Right move? They say that, right? And that sounds good, but look at the deals that they handed out. These weren't cheap, meager deals. They overpaid in certain instances for some of these players. I just talked about Nelson Agholor. Nelson Agholor worth, $16 million. Let me make sure I'm not overstepping my boundaries here. I could have sworn Nelson Agholor signed a 2-year, $32 million. It might have been 2 years, $26 million. It's one of the two. Let's take a look at Nelson Agholor's deal that he signed, just to make sure that I didn't overstep my boundaries here and assign him money that he shouldn't be assigned. But I believe that money was outrageous. It's 2 years, 26. So I did overstep my boundaries. It's still $13 million a year for Nelson Agholor, which I didn't think he was going to get. So you know what? While we're there, let's just look at some of these deals they signed. So we can, I think we can debunk that theory right now. Cam signed a 1-year deal. His is relatively cheap, which we expected. Nelson Agholor, 2 years, $26 million deal. Base salary of $11 million, $2 million in incentives per year. It's essentially a 2-year, $22 million deal with the ability for it to get up to 26. It's a lot of money for Nelson Agholor. Okay. And he came off of a strong campaign in Vegas. I will admit that, but that's not a cheap deal. Neither is Kendrick Bourne on a 3-year, $22.5 million. Who was fighting you over Kendrick Bourne that you felt the need to pay almost $8 million a year for Kendrick Bourne? Right around 7.5. Who's fighting you over Kendrick Bourne? Okay, I don't consider that a great deal. That's a good deal for Kendrick Bourne. I'm happy for him. Hunter Henry, A $37.5 million deal over 3 years. That's $12.5 million. That's right around where I thought it would be for him. That's not bad. But Jonnu Smith, 4 years, $50 million. Who would have thought Jonnu Smith with an F, not TH, Smith, okay? Who would have thought Jonnu Smith? When you pay him that kind of money, I probably should say his name right when you get paid that kind of money. Smith. Who would have thought Jonnu Smith would command more money than Hunter Henry on the free agent market? Not I. I'm guilty as charged. I didn't think that was going to be the case. I don't think that's a great deal for Jonnu Smith. It's a great deal for Jonnu Smith. I don't think that's a great deal for the New England Patriots. What are we talking about? So 4 years, $50 million. So pretty much 12.5, same thing. I didn't think Jonnu Smith was getting $12.5 million. I didn't think him and Hunter Henry were on the same wavelength in free agency. As my list indicated, Hunter Henry was like my third free agent on my top 23. Jonnu Smith didn't even make my top 23. Now, he was right on the outskirts looking in, but that's not a great deal if you ask me. That's not a Patriots-friendly deal. Now, we'll see if these dudes ball. Nobody will be talking about the price tag if they ball. It's if they don't, we'll be talking about these price tags. I still don't think that's a great deal for them. Dietrich Wise Jr., 4-year, $30 million contract, could get up to $30 million. I don't know the specifics of it. That's good money for Dietrich Wise. It's not a terrible contract, but again, I always say somebody's eyeballing his stuff. Somebody might have been eyeballing Dietrich Wise Jr. I don't know if they were eyeballing him to that extent where you needed to do that. Let's see. There were at least 1 or 2 more deals in here. The Matt Judon deal. 4 years, $56 million. 32 of it guaranteed in the first 2 years. So let's just look at this as a 2-year, $32 million deal. Okay. Let's not look at it as a 4-year, $56 million deal. 2 years, $32 million. So $16 million a year for Matthew Judon. Matthew Judon is good. Is he $16 million a year good though? Ask yourself that. Is there, have you at any point said, hey, Matthew Judon, look out. Baltimore Ravens got Matthew Judon screaming off the edge. I haven't. I can't speak for you. So, again, now, he's a guy that I think may benefit from playing in a diverse scheme that's going to allow him to do different things, and he may turn into a beast. We know New England is really good at getting the most out of stuff on defense. We'll see if he's another one of those guys. It's a lot of money from Matthew Judon. And then the Jalen Mills deal, it's not a terrible deal. 4 years, $4 million, $6 million per year. I'm not going to kill them for that. I don't think that's a bad deal at all. But you get where I'm coming from. Those to me aren't cheap deals. They didn't go out here and sign. The Giants, I thought, did a great job of getting guys on cheap deals. Other than Kenny Golladay. Okay? Everybody else that they signed, I thought they got them for quality money. Adoree Jackson's contract, what is it, $13 million a year? That's a little pricey for me, but you're banking on the upside of Adoree Jackson if you're the Giants. You like some of the things you saw, and you're hoping he stays healthy, and you get the Adoree Jackson coming out of USC. You hope that he builds confidence and thrives in this defense. But John Ross, 1 year, $2.5 million deal. Devontae Booker, let me see what Devontae Booker's deal was for the Giants. That was another little 2-year, like $4, $5, $6 million deal. It was a really good deal that they signed him to. Devontae Booker, 2 years, $6 million deal. That's a good deal. Kyle Rudolph, 2 year, $14 million deal. That's a good deal, $7 million per. Did hear about his foot needing surgery. That's not good, but they signed Adenabo from the Vikings and the Panthers on a 1 year, $2.5 million deal. That's a solid deal. I think the Giants did. That's what you call getting good deal and good value on cheap players, for the cheap and the low in a reduced cap season. So I don't think that's what I would classify the Patriots as. Sorry. I think the Patriots tried to lie to you. And it's okay. Some people will get caught up in that. You know, don't always buy the hype is what I'll tell you. We'll see if they're successful or not. That's all that matters. We won't be talking about how much they spent in free agency if they are successful with this. If they go 12-5, 11-6 next year, and they make the postseason and it's a successful year, we're not going to be talking about, the money they spent in free agency unless we want to spin it as a positive. Man, this is what happens when you're aggressive because, that's what people dick ride the Patriots. So, they're going to be aggressive in their praise of Bill Belichick because it was a down year for him last year. So, they want to give Belichick all the, oh my God, look at what Belichick was able to do with all this money he spent in free agency. If they don't win and these guys look like duds, then it'll be a different story. We'll see. Thank you for that super chat, King of the North. Twin D. Got a super chat from my man, Twin D. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you, Twin D, who writes, hey, LT, what's your concern level for what the Giants have done in free agency to date? We talked about that early in the show, so I don't want to really rehash a lot of what was said. I can just tell you I'm very, very impressed by what the Giants have done to this point in free agency, to echo what you just said. And I am worried because they were the biggest threat to us in the division last year once Dak Prescott went down. And they should have won the division if we're being brutally honest with each other. But they fizzled out down the stretch. Daniel Jones got injured. And, they had a really tough schedule down the stretch too. Games against Cleveland and Baltimore. And so it was tough on them. But at the end of the day, their roster wasn't great last year, and I thought they overachieved. And I say that, but they won 6 games, but in a division where the division winner was 7-9, you felt like they could have been a little bit better. At the end of the day, they were a 6-10 ball club last year, and they did that with a roster that was still building and had a bunch of holes in it, and then you lost your best player, arguably, in Saquon Barkley 2-3 weeks into the season. You're getting him back. You just added Adoree Jackson. You get Leonard Williams on a long-term deal. You add Kyle Rudolph, gives you a little bit more consistency at the tight end position. You add John Ross on a 1-year deal. But the biggest get was, of course, wide receiver Kenny Golladay. That perfectly slots all of their wide receivers now. You don't have Darius Slayton parading as a number 1. He's truly a number 2 in this league and a damn good one. And now Sterling Shepard isn't parading around as a number 2. He's actually supposed to be a number 3. He's going to get to play that role. And so everybody is properly slotted because you got the number 1 wide receiver. There are no more excuses for Daniel Jones. I think the Giants right now are a dangerous team. Dallas is as well. Don't count Washington out. I think the Eagles are right now the worst team in the division. That's how I feel. Thank you for the super chat, Twin D. KP Underdog. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. KP Underdog writes, what up, my guy? How do you feel about Rondale Moore? I've talked about him briefly already. I don't have much to say. Haven't watched as much Rondale Moore film as I would have liked to at this point. But I will tell you this, because this is no surprise. I'm not trying to keep this under wraps. Tonight, we're going to be doing the edge rushers. Next week, we will be doing wide receivers. Hopefully, I want to go combo receivers and tight ends. If I can get all of that done in the span of a week, then we will. If not, it would just be wide receivers next week. And so I'll be able to talk more about Rondale Moore. Obviously, he's super fast and he's super small. But I did talk about the discrepancy in production from his freshman year of 2018 to 19, and then ultimately 2020. This was a guy that initially opted out of 2020. Then as he watched his team get back on the field, was like, nah, I want to play. So he comes back and he plays, but he still wasn't the 2018 version of Rondale Moore everybody was anticipating. So there are questions about his productiveness and how it translates to the next level. If you can't get away from Big Ten competition, why should I think you're going to be able to get away from NFL competition? The easy answer is, 4.27. Okay. And as I mentioned at the top earlier in the show, when someone brought up Rondale Moore, I think it was my guy, JP, the quarterback play at Purdue wasn't all that great either. No excuses. Find a way to get it done. The quarterback position wasn't great in 2018 when he was balling. So I don't assume that the quarterback position is a relevant excuse in 19 or 20 either. So we'll see. But in any event, got another comment from Vincent Coe. Thank you for tripling up. Greatly appreciate you. My man Vincent Coe writes, if Kyle Fuller was released earlier, would you rather him than William Jackson III? That's a good one. I probably would have. Let me see how old Kyle Fuller is. I know WJ3 is 27. See how old Kyle Fuller is. I probably would have preferred Fuller. I'm not going to lie to you. Let's just see. He's 29. So, yeah, that's a big age difference. Let's see when his birthday is. February. So, he just turned 29. So, I mean, there's not a huge difference in age. One's 27. I think William Jackson turns 28 during the season. Let me see when his birthday is. And see exactly when he turns 28 October. So he'll be 28 in October. So it's not a big difference in the age. The biggest difference is Kyle Fuller is established. He's a two-time Pro Bowler. At one point, he was viewed as an all-pro type corner. He had a big year with interceptions. He's dropped a lot of interceptions too. Whereas William Jackson hasn't had the fanfare. He's been in Cincinnati. It's easy to be hidden out there. And he doesn't have a lot of ball production. Only 3 interceptions in his entire career. But that doesn't mean he isn't capable. It just means he hasn't had those opportunities. And as he put it, it's hard to get interceptions when they're not targeting you. Touche. All right. Point taken. So I think I'm cool with William Jackson. I'm cool with William Jackson. And I'm cool with what he's being paid and what we are bringing him to Washington to do. So that's a great question, but I think I'm cool with William Jackson III. Got another super chat. This one is from Twin D. Thank you for the super chat. Twin D, greatly appreciate you, my man. Twin D writes, oh, first of all, double up, thank you for doubling up, Twin D. Greatly appreciate you, my man. Twin D writes, the Washington football team fans seem to be obsessed with adding to the O-line. I wonder, however, how much of that is residue from feeling that we needed to have a strong O-line because Haskins was slated to be the starter. I don't know if there's much residue left from that situation as much as it is the outside media is continuing to push the narrative that you have to upgrade left tackle. Oh my God, you were terrible at left tackle last year. If you watch this team, that couldn't be further from the truth. Were we great at left tackle? No. Was it awful? Absolutely not. Okay? And I'll take it a step further. Was it good enough for us to make the postseason? Yes, it was. Okay? I would argue that, and there are points on both sides to be made, and there's a reason for everything. But I would argue that the struggles of the quarterback position were much greater earlier in the season when Haskins was playing, and even when he wasn't, when Jaron Christian was in the ball game. But to his defense, he went up against elite pass rushers, Chandler Jones and Myles Garrett. Cornelius Lucas didn't see those kinds of pass rushers later on in the season. So, but with that said, he still went up against TJ Watt and some guys like that, and he held his own. So, bottom line is, we played against the Buccaneers in Wild Card Weekend. There was some pressure, but they held up. After watching what that Buccaneers defensive line did to Patrick Mahomes, what they did to Aaron Rodgers, what they did to Drew Brees, we were the best offensive line they saw all postseason, and I don't think there's an argument to be had. So I keep saying, I don't know what the big fuss is about having to get a tackle at 19. I think that is outward perception. That's all the draft beatniks telling you over and over again. And if you listen to it enough, you become brainwashed and you think, man, we need a tackle. You watched this team for 16 weeks last year and then another week in the postseason. You know what they had at the tackle position. It wasn't terrible. Was it great? No. Could it be upgraded? Sure. Do you have to do it at 19? No. But the question then becomes want versus need. You want to upgrade the tackle. Tackle position? Do you need to upgrade it at 19? And that's where you kind of get into, hey, what's the best player available at 19? If it's tackle and you feel comfortable about taking tackle, take him. But to me, you don't have to do anything on the offensive line in the first 2 days of the draft. If you want me to be brutally honest with you, you don't have to do anything in the first 2 days of the draft on the offensive line. Why? Because you've got depth everywhere on the offensive line, including tackle, where you bring back David Sharp as your backup right tackle, and you've got 2 left tackles already in Cornelius Lucas and Jaron Christian. And who's to say that Cornelius Lucas or Jaron Christian doesn't come back, play their asses off in 2021, and we don't extend them a 3-year deal after the season? We don't know that to be the case. We don't know that we don't have the answer already in-house in Sadiq Charles, who we drafted to play left tackle, or at least compete to play left tackle and start last season. We don't know that he's not the answer. He could show us something and we could say, hey, hey, Sadiq Charles is a beast at left tackle. We got something. We don't know that to be the case yet. So I think there are more questions than there are answers. I just know this. I'm not subscribing to the notion nor the theory that we have to upgrade tackle at 19. Let everybody else do that. I know what I watched last season, and I saw a team that was more than competent at tackle, both left and right. I don't think that's the reason that they go tackle at 19. It's because they feel like they're desperate. If they go 19 tackle, that means this was the best player on the board, and they felt like they could really upgrade the position by selecting that player. And I wouldn't disagree with that at all. So there is that. So let's get to our final segment of the show. In garbage time. So I want to talk about Mac Jones and his pro day. And really more specifically, is he a first round pick? So I talked about Trey Lance, and not so much his pro day as much as it was just a referendum on Trey Lance. Like, there's a lot of people scattered all over the place on Trey Lance. Either you love him or you think he's overrated and he only threw the football 15 times. And so we got into that with Trey Lance. I kind of want to do the same thing with Mac Jones, because it's funny. People bring up things that are relevant to make the case or the point that they want to make, but have selective memory and don't bring up things when it doesn't support their point. And one of those things for me is with Mac Jones. We talk about Trey Lance all the time, because if you don't like Trey Lance, oh my God, he's only got, a handful of starts, 16 starts, I believe. I don't count the start from this year, and anybody that does, I think you're foolish. That wasn't a real game. That was an exhibition. It was stupid, pointless, and they should have never done it. That said, he started 16 games the year prior and went 16-0, won a national championship. And all anybody wants to talk about is, oh my God, he doesn't have a lot of starts and this, that, and the third. Look, I'm aware of this. We've seen guys get drafted with less starts than 16, okay? Mitchell Trubisky comes to mind as a guy that was drafted with much less starts. Dwayne Haskins is another guy that comes to mind. Do you see a trend here? I'm not saying that that's the end-all, be-all, and that guys that don't have a lot of starts are going to end up being subpar quarterbacks in this league, but it is what it is. You want guys with experience, but not everybody gets that kind of experience. As I mentioned, Trevor Lawrence has over 30 some odd starts. Not everybody gets to start in their freshman year, leads their team to a national championship, and for the years that follow, essentially go undefeated in the regular season and go to another national championship and lose in the playoffs in his final year. Not everybody gets to do that. Not everybody's team is that good, so they play in the conference championship game and have an extra game there and then turn around and then play again in the playoffs and then play again in the championship game. Not everybody has that ability, but Mac Jones got the chance to start in his redshirt sophomore year. Tua got injured He got to finish up the rest of that season. Had some good games, some ups and some downs. Threw a couple of pick sixes, some ugly ones against Auburn in a loss in the Iron Bowl a couple of seasons ago. Cleaned all of that up. Was phenomenal in his last season in Tuscaloosa for the Crimson Tide. And there's this groundswell for him to be a first-round pick. And ultimately, I think he will be a first-round pick. Would I be comfortable spending a first-round pick on Mac Jones? The answer for me is no, unless you're spending the 32nd pick in the draft on him. If you see him as a guy that either needs developing, or you want to bring it, you want to draft, and you want that 5th-year option on him, I could see, again, Teddy Bridgewater style, trading into the back end of the first round with Tampa Bay, getting a 32nd pick and selecting Mac Jones. Am I a proponent of say, Washington, who needs a quarterback, or any other quarterback needy team out there, like, say, Indianapolis, wherever they are, 23 or 4, wherever they are in the draft, selecting Mac Jones? I wouldn't be. But if Indianapolis did it, and they're not going to because they traded for Carson Wentz, but let's go with the hypothetical that they never traded for Wentz and they decided to do it, I wouldn't have a problem with that. But for me, he's not a first-round pick. And I thought there was an interesting debate on Get Up. And I don't watch a lot of these programs. It's not my thing. But Get Up is starting to become a very diverse show. Look, as with all of these debate shows, you get guys to pick sides because there isn't a fun debate where people agree. That's not a debate. That's just a bunch of people agreeing on topics. So in order for the show to have spice and sizzle and to be attractive, you need one guy, even if he doesn't agree with this position, to take one side, and you need the other guy to take the other side. So I was listening to, and I think somebody might have sent this to me, because I don't fish for these things. So people send me things that they deem interesting because they think it may be interesting to me, and a lot of times they're right. So somebody sent me the link to a discussion between Tim Hasselbeck and Marcus Spears on Mac Jones's pro day, and is he a first round pick? And Marcus Spears is like, hey, you take the names off the jerseys and, you look at his numbers and what he did. Well, first of all, Marcus, let me stop you right there. You can't take the names off the jerseys, guy. He played at Alabama with arguably the greatest collection of talent we've ever seen in college football. It rivals what we saw at LSU the year prior and with Alabama the year prior. So you can't take names off of jerseys, guy. But okay. He said, if you take the names off the jerseys and you just look at his numbers and what they represent and what he was able to do, this guy is a first-round talent. To which Tim Hasselbeck responded, and I agree with Tim Hasselbeck wholeheartedly. He said, look, man, first of all, you can't take the names off the jerseys because I'm watching him throw a poorly blocked bubble screen, a tunnel screen to a receiver against Notre Dame that pops for 30 yards and a touchdown. Like, that shit isn't normal, okay? And so he took it a step further and said, look, if I were to take, and they were having a discussion about Justin Fields versus Mac Jones. It's what it kind of evolved into. And he said, if I were to take Justin Fields and insert him on Syracuse's roster, Syracuse would have been still a pretty damn good team. If I insert Mac Jones on Syracuse's roster, what bowl game are they playing in? And for me, that's kind of what it boils down to. And then he took it a step further and he said, hey, look, I was talking to one of these stats gurus, and he said that quarterbacks rushed for over 9,500 yards last year. He said, if you just go back 5 years ago, this was unheard of. This is an obscene number 5 years ago. But that just goes to show you where this league is trending. And you need your quarterback, not necessarily to be a part of the run game, okay? Not everybody has to be able to run read option, but you'd like that threat to be there. And for me, it's not even about running read option. It's about if the play breaks down, can you extend the play by moving out of the pocket and outrunning a 290-pound defensive tackle? Is that who you are? Or is that 290-pound defensive lineman going to be able to run and catch you at an angle that he shouldn't be able to catch you at because you're not fast enough to get away and extend or run for a first down? That's, to me, where the league is going. You have to be able to have mobility, and not just pocket mobility. Not to say that that's not important as well, but hell, Baker Mayfield, even the guys that we look at as pocket passers, Baker Mayfield can move. He's a better athlete than people give him credit for. Like, you got to be able to move. I don't think Mac Jones is really capable of doing it. Now, I don't think his 40 time was as bad as I thought it was going to be. I think it was a 4.8 something, which isn't really all that bad. Might have been 4.9 something. I thought it was like 4.85 or 4.88 or something like that. Whatever it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, but you can see he doesn't move with the urgency that you would like your quarterback to in today's NFL. But again, if you can protect and he's as surgical as he showed at Alabama, and you got the weapons for him to distribute the football to, I think he could be a difference maker. But am I comfortable spending a first-round pick on Mac Jones? The answer to that for me is no, because a first-round pick, and I think we lose sight of this sometimes, because when you're a quarterback-needy team, you don't take this stuff into consideration. When you select a player in the first round, I don't care, irregardless of position, that guy is elite. He's the elite of the elite. He's top 3 more likely than not, depending on what position you're picking from, because 6 receivers may go off the board, but you still may qualify this guy as being elite. But he's elite at his position group coming into the league. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about this guy's talent and whether he can get it done. It's just a matter of fit and how he's able to take his talents from college to the pros. But it transcends. Okay, that talent transfers over and it's universal. We're not sure about that with Mac Jones. And that's, to me, where there's a bit of a divide. You've got people that, hey, you can win in this league with a pocket passer. Look at Tom Brady. Hey, let's not compare anybody to the GOAT, okay? He's an exception to the rule. You say Drew Brees, you say Phillip Rivers. All of these dinosaurs are aging out of the league, and they're not being replaced with another pocket passer. They're being replaced with a guy with mobility, okay? So when we see one of these dinosaurs leave, when Eli Manning left, he wasn't replaced with Eli Manning Jr. in terms of staying in the pocket. He was replaced by an athlete in Daniel Jones. When Phillip Rivers was replaced in Los Angeles with the Chargers, he wasn't replaced with another statue-esque quarterback in the pocket. He was replaced by Justin Herbert, a guy that can move, an athlete. That's where this league is heading, okay? The Patriots didn't replace Tom Brady with Tom Brady Jr. They replaced him with an athlete in Cam Newton. That's where this league is heading and trending towards. So you either get in or you get down, because you're going to get trampled over. I'm not saying Mac Jones won't be successful, but what I am saying is I don't think he's worthy of a first-round pick. What says you guys? Leave it down in the comment section of this video. But that said, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. We've been here longer than I anticipated, but anytime I'm having fun and I open the floor to you guys and you can and you take control the way that you did today, I'm all for it. Love it. Want more of it. One more time before we go, please subscribe to the Louie T Network for more great content. Turn on that notification bell so you don't miss a thing, and also make sure that you hit that like button. Over 230 of you out there, only 136 likes. I would appreciate it if we got this thing up to 150 before this podcast is over. I do want to make a conscious and concerted effort to start to do 2 things. One, I have to do a better job of not relying on YouTube to notify you guys of when I'm going live. I've had a lot of complaints of YouTube not informing of when I'm going live. And so there's been a disconnect. Oh man, I didn't know you went live. And could you, send out a notification? I'm going to try to be better in that regard. I can't make any promises, but I'm going to try. And then the second thing is I got to do a better job of promoting the merch. I got on one of my hoodies right now, as you can see right there. LouieTeeNetwork merch is available down in the description. You will see the link to theprintchamps.com, which is where you can shop all of the Louie T Network merch. You see me wearing the hats all the time, camo hat, black hat. You see me wearing the Scullies and beanies at times, black, gray. I got the hoodie on right now, it's black. You see me wear the gray hoodie all the time as well. Shirts, got them in white, black, gray. So any size you're looking for, got masks, you name it, it's available. So again, if you are looking to support the Louie T Network in another way, going out and copping the merch. And I want to thank all of you who have copped merch already. And you've shown me, you've sent me pictures again. If you've copped some merch already, please send me the pics. I want to see it. But I want to thank all of you already who have copped and supported the Louie T Network. And I implore you guys out there that want to continue to support. This is another avenue in which you can do that. Down in the description, you will find the links to everything you need to make that happen. So with that said, I'm going to glide to the side and allow you guys to get back to whatever you were doing before I interrupted your afternoon/evening. I'll be back a little bit later on tonight to break down the edge rushing position. We'll talk about that position ad nauseum. Looking forward to doing that later on tonight. Draft Prospects 101 live. So that should be a lot of fun. Until then, I'm your man Louie T, signing off. This has been the Louie T Network podcast, episode 149. It's in the books. You already know what it is. I'll see you guys on Friday. Have a good one.
Louie T Network.